Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for calling the hearing today. I appreciate that you and Senator Graham are turning attention to this. As many of you in the audience know, this is something that Senator Blumethal and I have worked on for quite a period of time. We started on this about 3 years ago. And what you saw over the last couple of years was a series of hearings, and Kristen and Emma and others who came in to tell their stories and to provide us with information and to walk us through what was happening. So we have heard from parents and kids and teachers and pediatricians and child psychologists who are all looking at us and saying, this is an emergency. And anybody who doubts it, Senator Blumethal just held up. And I have also the CDC report that just came out where you talk about youth risk behavior. And guess what? Social media is one of those items that is a part of that risk. And we have just taken to heart, we've listened to not only the testimony in the hearings, but to many of you that came separately to our offices to talk to us and to say, this is our experience. And we want somebody to know about this because something needs to be done. It is almost as if these social media platforms are operating in the days of the Wild West, and anything goes. And when these children are on these platforms, they're the product. They're the product. Their data is taken. That data is monetized, and then it is sold to the advertisers who are going to feed more information to these children. And we've come up with this Kids Online Safety Act. Now, we got close last time, and we almost got it through the finish line, and we didn't. So, new Congress, a new start on this, and we're so pleased that Judiciary Committee is working with us, with Commerce Committee, and we hope to get it on. There are some things that ought to be a given. These social media platforms ought to be required to make these platforms safer by default. Not just safer if you go through the 20 next steps, but safer by default. That ought to be required. We should also have a requirement that these platforms have to do independent audits, go through independent audits, not their research. Now, some of you have said in these hearings we've done, and you've heard these social media companies say, well, we're always auditing ourselves. But whoever knows what that audit shows? Not you, not me. Nobody knows. They like to keep that to themselves because, as Senator Blumethal has said, eyeballs on that site for a longer period of time, it's more money, money, money in the bank. And who pays that price? Our kids. Our kids. Our legislation was supported by 150 different groups. Now, in a time where politics is divided and you hear left and right, to get 150 different groups to come together and support something, I think that's a pretty good day. I think that shows a lot of support. So we realized that much of the reason these groups were coming out and supporting the transparency and the accountability and the duty of care was because they realized talking to these social media platforms was like talking to a brick wall. They could not get a response. And because of that, something different was going to have to be done. Senator Graham said it well in his comments. It is imperative that we take an action because this is a health emergency. If you don't believe it, read the CDC report. When you have a majority of children that are experiencing adverse impacts from social media platforms, you have to step in and do something. And that is what we are working to do. We welcome all of you. Thank you to our witnesses, and we look forward to the hearing today.
Thank you, Senator Blackburn. Let me say at the outset